This is Umar Ahmed for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. Absolute pleasure to get the main man at Sauerland, Mr. Wilfried Sauerland himself. The last time we caught up was actually in Saudi Arabia after Joshua Ruiz too. So it's great to get you back on the channel. How's life, Wilfried?
Thanks very much for welcoming me. Everything is fine. I mean, I'm not in the office every day anymore. You know, I'm semi-retired. Still try to help wherever I can.
Yeah, of course, we're in Riga, Latvia today. Of course, Maurice Bradis defends his world title. Expecting a defence of his world title and then hopefully the fight with Lawrence Okolie maybe in a unification next, Wilfried?
That's our plan, but there's still also the idea to go up into heavyweight, because we have seen with Usyk, who had a very, very close fight with Maurice Bradis, that the cruiserweights can do well in the heavyweights as well, at least these days. So this is also still open.
Absolutely, we've seen likes of Evander Holyfield, David Haye, Alexander Usyk, guys that you know very well, of course, and work with. How do you think Maurice Bradis potentially could fare at heavyweight?
I think he could do quite well, especially now as Usyk beat Joshua. It's shows that the cruiserweights can compete with the heavyweights. Of course, there's always this physical disadvantage, but this can be made up because of flexibility, speed, and so on.
Absolutely. I want to touch upon the change for Sauerland and the transition to Wasserman. Obviously, a massive link up, Wasserman, a huge company. What were your initial thoughts, Wilfried, when that idea was put to you?
It was put to me by my sons, who had negotiated everything, and I think it could be a big help also to move from Germany into England and especially into America, because Wasserman has a foot in all those countries and many more countries. So I think potentially it could be very good cooperation.
Yeah, Wasserman have a massive influence in sport in general. Of course, in boxing it's growing and growing every day. Was there any reluctancies from your part though about, of course, the Sauerland name is still there, but it's got the Wasserman name attached to it? Are you, of course, very proud of everything that you've done as a promoter, and obviously your sons have carried it on? Was there a little bit of reluctancy there about it?
Okay, I mean, it's of course would have been nicer, and I think Sauerland, especially in Germany, was always a very good name and well known. But so is Wasserman in other sports fields. So this might help to bring the whole boxing up. I'm not saying that I was very happy, but I mean, it was part of the deal, and in the end, I would never start a company again with my own name. I would always have a neutral, like Bob Arum did with Top Rank and so on. I think it shouldn't be so centered on one person.
And you said you're semi-retired, not in the office very much, but how much of a role do you still play, Wilfried, and how involved are you still in the business?
No, I'm not really involved, but I'm still following up and sometimes make calls and try to give advice, at least try. And, still I sit together with my sons, regularly. We have dinner, they visit me on holidays, so there's always a chance to influence things.
How do you think your boys, Kalle and Nissa, are doing in a very competitive boxing environment with various promoters, networks, more than ever I think we've ever seen? How do you think your boys are getting on, Kalle and Nissa?
I think they're doing very well, yeah. I mean, when I say sometimes I try to give them advice, I've made mistakes in the past, and I don't want them to do the same mistakes. They can avoid this. There are other mistakes sometimes coming. So I think it's very important that to what I contributed in the past to their education, that I can still do it these days.
Well, we know you guys have got a massive player in the division in Hrgovic. I will come on to him in a second, but I just want to get your thoughts on the current heavyweight fights we've had recently. So you mentioned it earlier, Alexander Usyk's unanimous decision win against Anthony Joshua. Were you surprised at all about how the fight went, Wilfried?
I thought personally that Anthony Joshua would do a different type of fight because the way to box, like he did against Ruiz in Saudi Arabia, that was not the right tactic against somebody who, like Usyk, who is very outstanding as a technician, flexibility or mobility and so on. So I think it had quite a bit to do with the boxing plan, because Joshua never took advantage of his physical superiority.
And going into the rematch, how much more of a difficult challenge is it? Because Usyk will have that confidence of getting that win over Anthony Joshua. How much of a difficult task will it be for Anthony to overturn that loss?
I mean, we got to know Usyk very well during the WBSS because he had some very good fights in the tournament, and we know he's a very confident person anyhow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would change very much in a return match. Yeah, he would still be the same, and he has got a game plan how to beat Joshua. So it's up to the other side to find a plan how they can box him, be more aggressive, you know.
Of course, this past weekend we saw a dramatic fight with Tyson Fury retaining his titles against Deontay Wilder. An epic heavyweight fight. A lot of people saying one of the best heavyweight fights they've ever seen. You've been in the sport a long time. Would you go along with that?
I would say it was a dramatic fight because of all the knockdowns. But I must say, from a technical point of view, I've seen better heavyweight fights. Yeah, but from the drama, with all these knockdowns, it was a very special fight.
Were you concerned at all when Tyson Fury went down in the fourth round, or did you think, no, he's going to get up and he's going to be okay? After
that knockdown in the first fight, which I think was much heavier than the ones he had now, I always thought if he goes down, he has the chance to get up again, and that's what he did.
Absolutely. And what about the determination from Deontay Wilder? Because he looked like he was, running low on energy, but he kept on going and going and was trying to get Tyson Fury out of there.
I mean, he fought a much better fight than he did in the first. But of course, Tyson Fury with his 125 kilos, he was leaning on him all the time. Yeah, and that is a tactic which I think contributed to Wilder getting tired early in the match already.
Definitely. Would you now say categorically that Tyson Fury at this present time is the number one heavyweight in the world?
I wouldn't definitely say. I mean, I think even against Usyk, it could be a close fight because, for one thing for sure, he can't lean on Usyk the way he was leaning on Wilder, but I think he has. Fury is a good boxer as well, so it could be that he can also outplay Usyk with his movements because he is so big. Yeah. So, but I think it would be a very interesting fight. It might be a boring fight. We never know. Although I've never seen Tyson Fury in a boring fight yet, but he would be the favorite. Let's put it this way. Yeah. But I think it could be a very close fight.
It sounds like what you're saying. Usyk at this moment probably presents the biggest challenge to Tyson Fury. I'm sure you also believe that one day Hrgovic will present a big challenge to both Usyk and Tyson Fury. In your opinion, what qualities give you the thought that Hrgovic could give Fury and Usyk trouble?
I mean, first of all, he's a good boxer. He boxed already as a child, so he was he has boxed many, many years. He has a lot of experience. He was a very good amateur, and he has got the right physique, was nearly 2 meters tall, and is a good puncher, has a very good chin. The only thing is sometimes his defense. He's could be better, but he hasn't been in a difficult fight lately, so we don't know whether, I know they have worked on it, whether it really has helped, but that we can only see once there is a more difficult fight.
Kalle always tells me no one wants to fight Filip Hrgovic, very extremely hard to get in fights. I'm sure you share that sentiment as well. No one wants to fight Filip Hrgovic.
No. All they ask for ridiculous money. If you challenge, let's say, or if you box a final eliminator and so on, you can't expect seven figure purses. You have to earn them first. And there was a purse bid with Hunter, who had before a very big mouth, and then when the purse bid came, he didn't take it up. He said because of the money, but I know he has fought for less money, so it was still a good purse deal, but he's, let's say, aware that the risk of losing is very big, so he rather carries on fighting for smaller purses, average fighters.
I think what was disappointing about that is that he essentially agreed to the fight.
Yes, yeah.
And then at late notice, after Filip had done a long camp, then cancelled it, pulled out.
Yeah, no, that was not great because, first of all, there was a lot of energy in this preparation, was a lot of money spent on this preparation, and then, just to withdraw like this, after agreeing to a purse bid, that was not the nicest thing.
Wilfried, what do you make of the current state of UK boxing? We have DAZN, who have newly entered the market. Obviously, Sky are still going very strong. You have BT Sport. Is it a good thing that all these networks are getting involved in boxing? We've seen Triller in boxing as well.
Competition is good for the promoters. It's good if there are few stations available and not just one. So it can only be good for the future. But of course, one has to be aware that there's only a limited amount of fighters available. That all the stations can produce good fights, and because otherwise they might get tired if they say, the good fighters are on this station, we can't get them, so we stop with boxing. So I think one has to be very careful there to keep stations like Sky and so on happy if you can produce good fights for them.
Definitely. Well, we know someone who's going to be a big part of Sky Sports' plans is Chris Eubank Jr.
Yes.
Of course, with you guys, signed with you guys. What do you think about Chris's potential future? The Golovkin fight has been mentioned, Liam Williams, even maybe a Billy Joe Saunders rematch. Do you think Chris Eubank Jr. can do big things in this sport?
Let's see now. He has had quite a long rest, so he's fighting the first time tonight again. Let's see how what he can produce, and then it's step by step. Yeah, because of Corona, some fighters didn't fight for 1 year, 2 years, and that's a lot of time in a fighter's life. And one has to see how they come out of this situation.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. Big night for Sauerland, big night for Wasserman tonight with Marius Bradis and Chris Eubank Jr. both fighting. Of course, Harlem Eubank as well in Riga tonight as well, one of your other guys. I asked you about the UK market. What's the German market like? Obviously, I think it's fair to say it's taken a decline from where it once was when the Klitschko's were dominating. We had Arthur Abraham as well doing big things. How do you assess the German boxing market at the moment?
The German boxing market has gone down, definitely. Yeah, there are several reasons. When we did boxing, we had viewing figures up to 17, 18 million. When we had Henry Maske, Axel Schulz, and Sven Ottke and so on. This has changed because the main stations with whom we did business, they are not taking boxing at the moment because there are no new stars. Yeah? It's always a problem, and for many years we could overcome these problems because when we had big fighters who had a big name, we always brought up new fighters over the years so that they could follow in the footsteps of the other ones. Then we had a guy called Alexander Frankel, who was a European champion in cruiserweight, and he beat Macrinelli, knocked him out, and he fell away because of health problems. And if suddenly this gap comes, it's difficult to get the television stations to help to build up a new fighter. And with the Klitschkos came, they boxed in Germany, but they never helped to produce new fighters. You know, they just came, boxed, and that was it. While the other ones who were promoting, like in old times, Universal, we all looked always that new people were going to come up. So that's why there was a big gap. And slowly we have a few guys again in the top 10 ranking in the world. But it will still take a little while before we have really got somebody exciting there again.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And just lastly, Cal always tells me that you have some amazing stories of your time in boxing, especially when you were doing stuff with John Mugabe. Have you got maybe a story you want to share, a crazy experience that you've had in boxing? Maybe you can pick one or two, or it's up to you.
I mean, as you mentioned, John Mugabe, there's one story that he lived in London, in an apartment which we rented for him, and every week he used to get his money, for pocket money for his food and things like this. And in those days, he couldn't read nor write, and he didn't have any clue about money. So when he got his money, he went into a place and bought a bit of food, and it was maybe £5, and he gave them a £50 note, and he said, "The rest is for you." Okay? And I mean, he learned later his lessons when he was explained to him. Or another one was Lotti Boale, who was my first fighter ever, who also fought for the world title against Matthew Franklin, who was later Matthew Saad Mohammed. And he was a wild boy who, let's say, liked the girls very much, liked the drinks very much. So his trainer in those days was George Francis, who was a famous trainer in England in those days. So in order to keep him on a good note, not to run around before the fight during the night, they slept in the same room. Yeah, and George tied Lotti to himself. So when Lotti had to get up during the night, they go to the toilet, George had to go with him, and then they went both back to bed again. That's the only way we could avoid that he was, doing some nonsense again.
Well, I'm sure we could talk about millions of stories that you've had over your time. Of course, Hall of Fame promoter Wilfried Sauerland. Appreciate your time on IFL TV here in Riga, Latvia, and we look forward to a brilliant night tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.